Okay, so for today, we're going to be doing our first mission to Jool, which is most of the time the 6th planet from the Sun. And we're actually going to be doing a one-way trip there, just sending an unmanned probe. So Jool is a gas giant, meaning that it doesn't actually have a surface. And it is pretty big, so this is just going to be a one-way trip to keep the payload size pretty small. Like I said, it'll be unmanned, so there's not going to be anybody going actually on this, and it's just going to be a little communication satellite that'll orbit it. I think Jool's a pretty cool place to go first, just because I think it's got 5 moons orbiting it, and I think of those, I definitely want to go to Tylo, which is the hardest place to land in the game. And I also want to go to Lathe, which is sort of just like a smaller Kerbin. But hopefully we'll be able to do a return mission from there at some point. The other reason is that you'll get to see that when we get there, Jool is actually it's just a little bit smaller than Earth actually is. If you didn't know, this game, the entire solar system is scaled down by about 1/8. And so you'll get to see Jool it's still a little smaller than Earth, but it's pretty close. So you can see here, I've begun construction on the probe, and I've just placed a bunch of communication dishes around it, and you can actually see, you saw earlier there at the bottom, I placed a ion engine, which it's by far the most fuel-efficient engine in the game, and if I had fully fueled this thing, it would have something like 22,000 meters per second of delta V, which is enough to get pretty much anywhere and back, like several times in the solar system. That said, I obviously don't need that much, so I drained about 75% of the fuel, and the caveat to using the ion engine is that it uses, first of all, instead of using the normal oxidizer and liquid fuel, it uses another fuel called xenon gas and electric charge, which means that I need to have plenty of electricity storage in order to fire it. And it's Jool is so far away from the sun that you can't really use solar panels. They only produce, I think it's like 1/8 the normal amount of electricity that they do at Kerbin. So to supplement that, we're going to use what are called RTGs, and they're basically just small nuclear reactors that we put on the ship. But like I said, the caveat to using those ion engines is their thrust-to-weight ratio, which is absolutely abysmal, and there's a mod you can use to allow you to warp faster while you're burning an engine, and I really wish I knew about that, because that engine, the burns take a ridiculous amount of time on them, and I had to speed the burns on that engine up by about 10 times, which is as fast as this editor let me go. So it's pretty painfully boring. But we're going for a pretty standard setup for the rest of the rocket, and we're going to go ahead and get ready for launch. And we have liftoff. So, as you can see, this is a little bit bigger rocket. We are using the Saturn V parts from the one of the DLCs for this game. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up this ascent by about 4 times. And we are using, I think it was 9 Mastodon engines, which are the most powerful engines in the game. So this is a pretty big rocket. Or actually, no, that's the Mammoth engine, sorry. But our flight plan will remain pretty much the same, even with this slightly bigger than average rocket, aiming to be pointing about 45 degrees at 10 kilometers. But here we are coming right out of the stratosphere, and there is flame out and separation on the first stage. And we're going to go ahead and do our prograde burn at apoapsis to circularize around Kerbin. And so for this stage, I went with the skipper engine, or no, that's the Rhino? No, Poodle engine, that's it. So the Poodle engine is sort of a compromise between the Skipper and the Terrier. It's about as powerful as the Terrier, or maybe a little bit less so, but it's more fuel efficient. And it's a little less powerful than the Skipper, but I don't know. It got about 5,500 meters per second of delta V out of it, that stage, which is plenty to get to Jool and mostly circularized. So we're going to go ahead and warp around to Periapsis and begin our prograde burn. And like with most burns in this mission, it's a pretty slow one. We've got a pretty heavy payload with all that fuel and the shuttle, so the burns take a good while. But now that that's complete, we will just coast on to Jool. But first, Jool has a enormous gravity well since it's so big, and that means that while it's really easy to get an encounter with it, it requires a lot of fuel to make maneuvers inside the system. And so what I did was I just got a approximate encounter with Jool, and I went ahead and made that burn, and I'm doing a mid-course correction to get my orbit roughly around the equator, which cost about 1,400 meters per second of fuel, which is a lot just for a 1 degree inclination change, but that's just because of the size of Jool. But you can see it there. I'm plotting my capture burn, and I can see that tells me there actually I won't be able to do the entire burn with that Skipper stage. So what we're going to have to do is once we reach there, we're going to have to decouple that stage, and then we will have to start using the ion engine, unfortunately. Now, since we're able to get captured with the Skipper stage, maybe not circularized, but we're able to get captured, we won't have to worry about getting flown back or slung back out into deep space. But it is just going to mean that we're going to need to, I guess I should say, even though only a tenth of this burn we're about to do is with the ion engine, burning that ion engine takes up about half of the burn time. So you'll see whenever I start burning it, I have to speed the footage up by 10 times, and if I do another mission with ion engines, which I might not just because it takes so long, but you can see there's all of Jool's moons. And also, you can see one of the moons around there is called Lathe, and there it is, you can see it on the left, but it's actually got an ocean this far away from the sun somehow. But anyways, now we begin finishing our burn with the ion engine, and again, this is at 10 times speed, so I was just sitting here for probably like 5 minutes while that finished burning. And so now we are circularized around Jool, but I thought to get a better scale of how big this thing is, because like I said, it is almost as big as Earth, I'm going to go ahead and lower our periapsis from 5 million to, I think it was 2.5 million meters above the quote-unquote surface. But I'm going to go ahead and do another really long burn to lower our periapsis, and then we will warp to our periapsis and burn retrograde to lower our apoapsis and get circularized. And so if I ever play with the real-life solar system mod, I'm going to have to figure out how to get off a planet that is bigger than this even. But anyways, we have now completed our burn. So we will go ahead and unfold those antennae, and there we go. So I'm thinking for next week, we're going to do a surface base for Minmus, and that's about it. See you.